Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. In this video we are going to be revisiting a subject we've done before but with a twist, and it is top 100 songs. So we did this a couple of years ago in a series of 10 videos, and I have to say my top 100 has barely changed, if I'm honest. Whereas yours, Joel,
very different,
is massively different. More to the point, when he compiled it and was telling me about it, there was only one song on it that was pre-2000, and as a result he's ditched that and done a top 100 of everything that is post-2000. Yeah?
Yeah.
As a companion on that, I'm going to do my top 100 of songs that were released since he was born, which was October 07. Before we go into our lists, which we will be doing in chunks of 10, we just remind you to subscribe if you've not already done so, to click the thumbs up to like the video and the bell to receive notifications of future content. And Joel is going to kick off with his first batch of 10.
At number 100, I have the first appearance of an artist that will appear quite a lot because I have a very strong artist bias on this list. And it is by Maisie Peters, You're Just a Boy and I'm Kind of the Man. At number 99 is one of the most famous emo songs ever, of Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance.
That's in my list, my real top 100.
Yeah, but not in this one because it's too old.
Yeah.
It's older than me. Number 98 is the first game track on my list, which is Dearly Beloved from Kingdom Hearts 2. Then at 97 is It Possible by Mimi Webb, which came out last year and I'm sure will be on Dad's list at some point.
We shall see.
96 is another appearance of Maisie Peters with John Hughes Movie, which I've given you as a revenge before on our podcast.
Yeah, our podcast is called Generation Mix. Go and check that out if you haven't listened to it before.
Yeah. 95 is a great pop track from a couple years ago, which was the breakout hit for another one of my favourite artists, Tate McRae, and that is You Broke Me First. At 94 is The Middle by Zedd and Maren Morris. Dad knows Maren Morris, but not Zedd. And number 93 is my first worship track on my list, which is Solid Ground by New Day and Anna Brading. And then another appearance of Maisie Peters, which is You Signed Up for This.
Third so far, is it?
It slows down towards the middle of the list,
okay,
and then picks up a little bit again towards the end. But, you know.
What was that again? So You
Signed Up for This, which is the title track of her first album. And then lastly for this batch of 10 is the first of another artist that will appear a lot, and I mean a lot, which is 21 Pilots, who are my favourite band, and this is The Outside from Scaled and Icy. And a good chunk of the reason that it's here is because it's got a really good music video. Very cool.
Okay, so I'm going to be doing mine without the qualification of 93, 92, etc. It's just going to be these ones that are in the 91 to 100 category. And that includes Harmony Road by Sting from the album The Bridge that came out in 2021. Love Story by Taylor Swift from Fearless, which I think came out in 2008, just after you were born, I think. Am I right?
I think so.
Land of the Bees by McFly came out on the Power to Play album last year. Then we have the appearance, and this will not be the last appearance of this artist. It's Charlie Puth, but this time with Meghan Trainor, and it's Marvin Gaye, number one hit single. Then I've got a fair few legacy artists in this list, people that have been around for a lot longer than he's been alive. As an example, Elvis Costello and the Imposters from the Boy Named If album, my album of the year of 2022, The Man You Love to Hate. Then we have a proper banger, floor-filling hit. It's Poker Face by Lady Gaga. Next up, Lady A and the title track of their album, What a Song Can Do, from 2021. And then I've got from 2020, the second appearance on this list, and it won't be the last, of Taylor Swift with Betty from Folklore. A bit of a sweary song, but for a sweary song, it's totally in context. It does work. Next up is Kiss Her Goodbye by Eric Church. This is from the And album, which sits between Heart and Soul, and was only physically released to most people last year, but came out 2 years before. It's a really, really strong song. And lastly, in this little batch from 2022, legacy artist again, it's a-ha, and the track As If. Your next batch of 10, Joel.
So my next batch of 10 starts with the first and only appearance of an artist that appeared a lot of times last time, and that is Alan Walker with All Falls Down. Next is the first appearance of another artist that will appear quite a bit. You're going to hear that a lot. And that is Thumbs by Sabrina Carpenter. And number 88 is Ship to Wreck by Florence and the Machine, and I'm sure will be on Dad's list at some point. Number 87 is one of the only good songs by this artist, and it is Habits (Stay High) by Tove Lo, who you have never heard of.
No, I've never heard of it. Or her.
This is her only big song, I think. Okay. Number 86 is Jesus of Suburbia from American Idiot by Green Day. And then we have Starlight by Muse, which is mostly here because I did it to get my grade 4 singing exam. So it's
a great song off Black Holes and Revelations.
It is a great song. Next is Lost the Breakup by Maisie Peters again, which was quite a big single from the Good Witch album. Next is I've kind of cheated because I've got Holiday and Boulevard of Broken Dreams by Green Day because they're linked on Spotify. They're classed as the same track, and I haven't done this wrong with another thing.
On our original videos, I cheated with the medley at the end of Abbey Road, Golden Slumbers.
But I have a good reason for linking them because they're so linked in my head. Mostly because my first and only ever gig that I did with my old band. With that band, was of both these songs back to back, so they're linked in my head. Moving on quicker, is the next appearance of 21 Pilots with The Judge from Blurry Face. And lastly is Without Me by Halsey, which is a really great pop track that I didn't even know existed, despite it being one of the most streamed songs of all time. Until a few months ago, and it's amazing.
And that's the album, therefore, you've asked me to.
That is the album I've asked you to get from
HMV Style. My next 10 then.
Yeah.
Legacy artists abound once more, and there's quite a few of them in this list. So first off is Iron Maiden, Stratego, from Senjutsu from 2021. Then we have a non-legacy artist, yay, Rag and Bone Man, and I personally really like the track Skin. It's my favourite one of his. We're back with Aha for Foot of the Mountain, from the album Foot of the Mountain, from 2009. I think it's a really strong album. Ed Sheeran makes his only appearance on my list with Castle on the Hill. Next up is The Fizz. Now they are 3/4 of what used to be Bucks Fizz, but they are releasing new material. And I've got a track called I'm On My Way, it's kind of like a love letter to the fans. There's a lot of references to our Bucks Fizz songs, and it's a great song from 2022. 2012 saw the return of one of my all-time favourite bands, Deacon Blue, with the album The Hipsters, and I've picked the title track from that. Next up is something from last year, an artist who I have had very little interest or love it for a long time.
In fact, you disliked them.
I did specifically dislike them. It was Pink, and it's Trustful. And Trustful was a good album and a great song. Next up, Liz Phair, an artist I didn't know about but has been around since the 90s. From the album Soberish is Dosage. Dosage is an amazingly good song. Next, Keane, a band that we are going to go and see and in just over a month's time. And it's Silence by the Night from Strangeland. And to round off this little batch of 10, legacy artist Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott, and it's I Don't See Them, which I believe is from Wisdom, Laughter and Lines. I don't know the albums that well, but Paul Heaton's a great songwriter, and this won't be the last time he appears on this list because he's had a third highly successful career as Heaton and Abbott. Over to you.
So, start this next batch of 10. I've got another appearance by 21 Pilots with Ode to Sleep, which has a really interesting and works very contrasting A and B section, which sounds really strange but cool. And then we have another appearance of Muse with Time Is Running Out, which is a very cool track.
Absolution is an outstanding album.
Then next is the, surprisingly enough for me at least, is the only appearance of Demi Lovato on this list, who is one of my favourite artists, but only appears once, and is Every Time You Lie from Here We Go Again, which was her second album. And then next we have another game track with Lifelight from the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate soundtrack. This is kind of a double whammy because the normal version has lyrics, but this is both the normal version and a really cool rock cover by Nostalgica, which doesn't have lyrics, and it's both of those versions combined make up this spot. Next is Trouble by Avicii, who, like Alan Walker, appeared a lot in my other list, and this is the only time he appears. Continuing, we have more Maisie Peters with Elvis Song. Then we have another 21 Pilots song with Mulberry Street from Scaled and Icy, which was released in 2021. And then another worship song with Same God by Elevation Worship, which is a really great worship song for me. Next is the final game track on my list, which is the Halo theme, specifically the Gugnir mix from Halo 2, but it's just a very cool theme. And finally for this batch is Avril Lavigne with My World from Let Go.
Okay. So it's my turn again. My next little run of 10 kicks off with some legacy artists, and I'm going to deal with all the legacy artists in one little bunch here. We have got The World That Was by The Proclaimers off the Dentures Out album from 2022. The Narcissist by Blur from The Ballad of Darren from 2023. Riding the Crest by a-ha from 2009 from that album I mentioned earlier, The Foot of the Mountain. Pretty Soon by The Fizz. That is off the same album as the previous one I mentioned, which is Everything Under the Sun, the album. We're back again with Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott for DIY. Now this one is off What Have We Become, their debut release as a pair. Jackie Abbott used to be in the Beautiful South, so it's not like they hadn't worked together before. DIY is just a clever, almost patter song, certainly in the choruses. And I suppose this counts as a legacy artist, as he first released material in the late 90s. It's Chris Tomlin. This is the first worship song of mine on this list here, and it's Holy Forever. Currently doing the rounds and starting to head towards probably being the most used worship song around the world at the moment. But for non-legacy artists, we have Bruno Mars. 2010's album, Doo-Wops and Hooligans, and I absolutely love The Way You Are.
The Way You Are.
Yeah, I think it's
also not his best, even close to being his best.
Well, you have
Locked
probably
Out
got
of Heaven and Uptown Funk are both
you've probably
better.
got Uptown Funk on your list.
I don't.
Oh, well,
But
what do you
spoilers.
know then? Eric Church appears again, and from 2011's Chief, I've got Drink in My Hand. Taylor Swift from Folklore in 2020, The Last Great American Dynasty. I know normally we'd say Dynasty, but hey, she's American. And to round out this batch of 10 is Blossoms, a band I didn't know existed until I heard the Ribbon Around the Bomb album a couple of years ago, and I've grown to really like that, but I've picked Juliet. I think that's the strongest song on there. It's the one that really sticks with me the most. Over to you again.
To start this batch of 10, we have our first crossover, because I also have The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift. Next is one of Tate McRae's slower songs with Boy X from I Used to Think I Would Fly, followed up by one of Sabrina Carpenter's slower songs in Tornado Warnings from Emails I Can't Send from 2021. Then we have the return of 21 Pilots, and it won't be the last, even close, with Nico and the Niners from Trench, followed by, I believe, the last Maisie Peters for a while, with Stay Young from I think it's an Apple TV show. It's not actually from an album, but it's a very happy track. Next is Do I Want to Know by the Arctic Monkeys. Really good rock track from the last 2 decades. And then You First by Paramore, which is the only track from
This Is Why.
This Is Why. Then next is Red Flags by Mimi Webb, which is, I think, my favourite Mimi Webb song. And then Warning by Green Day, which is on the cusp of not being allowed on this list. Cause
it came out in 2000.
Because it's 2000, so it's only 1 year off not being allowed. And finally for this batch of 10 is another 21 Pilots song with Heavy Dirty Soul, which is the first track on Blurry Face and one of their heavier rap songs compared to the rest of them.
So for my next batch of 10, I'm going to do the same thing as last time. I'm going to do legacy artists and new artists separately. So legacy artist, Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott, again with My Dearest Husband. This was not on the Cool Kid Calypso album unless you bought the special edition. Should have been on the main album because it's one of his very best ever lyrics. Then we have Third Day with Let Me Love You from Revelations. I really like Third Day in this song in particular. It's just kind of special. It just reminds me about him. Iron Maiden are back. Speed of Light from the Book of Souls album from 2015. Pet Shop Boys and Leaving, which was the lead single, I think, from the Elysium album, which is kind of like the spiritual successor to my favourite Pet Shop Boys album, Behaviour. We have Aha, Cast in Steel, 2015 album, and their title track, I think, is absolutely outstanding song. Gary Barlow. Now, Gary Barlow, Take That came out in the 90s. He counts as legacy. And Requiem, a co-write between him and Robbie Williams. And you can hear Robbie Williams' influence in the structure of the lyrics. It's an amusing-ish song about being and observing your own funeral and wake. Great song, Requiem. Mm-hmm. But for non-legacy artists, we've got Elle King. So she did a song called X's and O's, which I have played and gigged many times, and I love playing. It's a great song. Lady A, Things He Handed Down, from the album I mentioned earlier, which was What a Song Can Do. This has probably got a little bit of the feels for me because I heard the album not long after my dad had died. And this song is kind of about having lost your dad, the things he handed down. Then we got Phil Wickham. So who's Phil Wickham? He's a worship songwriter, and Living Hope, which I think is one of the best worship songs to have come out in the last 10 years. And lastly, the most recent song on this entire list, because I'd never heard this song until yesterday. It's called The Architect by an artist called Casey Musgraves. So, back to you for the next batch of 10.
So, starting off this batch, we have Lauv, who is an artist that Dad can't stand anything he's heard of, which is not very much, with I'm So Tired, which is one of his two really big hits, and I think it's a great song. Next is the title track from American Idiot by Green Day. Next is my first appearance of Charlie Puth with I Don't Think That I Like Her from the album Charlie. And then we have Part 2 by Paramore from the album Paramore, which is a very cool continuation of a song that I can't remember the name of on Riot with it's not really a story, but it kind of is a story and it continues it and it's very cool. Next is Perfect Symmetry by Keane, which we get to go see later this year, which would be very cool. Mm-hmm. And this is mostly on here because I recently did my GCSE performances, and this was my solo performance because it's a grade 6 piece and you need to do a grade 5+. Then we have another appearance of Lauv, so it wasn't, and this is his other big hit single with I Like Me Better, and so it wasn't that much higher. And then next is another appearance by Charlie Puth, also from the album Charlie, with That's Hilarious. Then next is, I think, the first appearance of Ava Max on my list, with Rumours from the album Heaven and Hell. Penultimately is quite a slow track by Sabrina Carpenter from the album Singular Act 2. It is Exhale. I think it's a really nice slow track. And then lastly, for this batch of 10 and this batch of 50, is Overcompensate by 21 Pilots, which was a single released 4 weeks ago.
And it's from the new
And it's going to be on the
Clancy.
album Clancy when it comes
He
out.
is so stoked for that.
I'm very excited.
It's the first time he's pre-ordered something. My next batch of 10, that'll take me halfway. Let's do the non-legacy artists first, just to change things up a bit. We've got a crossover. I Don't Think I Like Her by Charlie Puth. In the same batch. That's a perfect crossover. Yes. George Ezra, Anyone for You from the Gold Rush Kid album. Someone Like You by Adele, absolutely beautiful ballad. And you used to have a lot of Adele in your top 100 and suddenly there's none.
Because I just don't usually listen to the slow stuff.
Guardian
It's that slow.
by Ben Cantelone. It's a worship song. It's off the Everything in Colour album, came out in 2012. The River, a song by Real Life Church, written by a personal friend of mine, Philippa Yates. I genuinely think this is one of the best worship songs that I've heard since Chris Tomlin released How Great Is Our God. I think it's that good and it deserves wider exposure. I will put a link in the description somewhere where you can get your ears around The River. And then we have Charlie Puth again for Tears on My Piano from the Charlie album. So I've got a double entry from Charlie in my set of this 10 as well, just like you.
Did you not?
As for legacy artists, Green Day's Carpe Diem from the Pretty Awful Uno album in 2012. Joe Jackson. Now, Joe Jackson was an old new wave artist, and he released an album last year which I thought was absolutely masterful called Max Champion Presents What a Racket. And there's a track on there that's so good. Patter song. It's the second time I've mentioned that as a subject. Think of the show. Then we have a couple of Paul McCartney tracks. So from McCartney 3 that came out in 2020, Seize the Day, the most Beatley sounding thing that he's done on that album. And if he'd have released a single, it should have been that. And then we have I Don't Know, a song he couldn't have written until he was in his late 70s because it's so wrapped up in mortality. It's from the Egypt Station album from 2018. So that concludes my little batch of 10 and takes me halfway. And if you think we've taken a while, you really should have seen the first time we had a go. So we're going to stop there, go out and seek our second video, which will cover the next 50.
And will be released on the same day.
And will be released pretty much simultaneously almost. But we just want to give you a break to go and make a cup of tea. See you on the next one.